so now I'm going to log into Test Data Manager as a tester. So one of the things Test Data Manager has is the ability to be able to have test data engineers build assets to meet test data requirements that can be reusable assets for testers to be able to leverage through self-service in the portal. So test data engineers can actually expose how to generate data, how to find and reserve data, and other testing services as services in a service catalog that a tester can utilize. So I'll log into the Test Data Manager as a tester, and you'll see that my view will actually be a lot less available options because I'm a tester, and really all I need to do in here is actually leverage services that have been published to me for self-service. So you'll notice as a tester I still come in and I have access to particular projects in those project versions, and so I'll leverage that, and then I'll see what's in my service catalog to be able to leverage for self-service. So here I can see there's actually 3 data service tiles that have been exposed to me by a test data engineer that allow me to be able to interact with particular environments, in this case for SAP, to be able to create a vendor master record, or I can leverage find and reserve models that test data engineers have created for me to be able to go search for data that might fit certain data criteria that I need for testing, right? So the first one I'll show you is synthetic data generation self-service, right? So this will allow me to go in and I can create a new vendor record, right? So one of the things I can see here that the test data engineer exposed to me is the ability to choose which SAP client I want to actually generate data into. I can choose from particular company codes that are available. I can choose which reconciliation account might be assigned, what the payment term would be, and then I can choose the environment that I want to push to. In this case, I only have access to one environment. That's all that's been given to me. So it allows me to be able to select that and push data to it. And it also allows me to push multiple records. So let's just say I'm going to push, I'll create, well, not 23 records, I'll create 2 vendor master records, right? So I can click next here, and then I have my email address, which will send me a notification once my test is complete, or my data generation is complete, so I don't have to sit here and wait for anything. I can do it now, or I can schedule it for at some future time. And I can hit request. So just to kind of show you the results of this synthetic data generation, what I'm going to do is flip over to a view of the actual data. So here you see I have LFA1 pulled up. I have all the records in it, and the latest record is record row number 433 here. And then the same thing with LFB1. The latest record here is 409. So when I go generate data, I'm expecting new records to be inserted into these tables. So this synthetic data generator is actually aligning data across those 2 tables so the data integrity is correct and properly provisioning a vendor master record, right? So I can hit request. Test Data Manager is a job engine, so I will get a submitted request that's actually going and doing a published job. You can see that this is running. It's not entering a lot of data, so you can see it's completed very quickly. I can come in, and like I have from some of the other services, when I run them, I can actually see what was done, right? So it's going to give me this log that's actually going to show me that data was published to these 2 tables. I can see 2 rows were inserted into LFA1, and I can see also 2 rows were inserted into LFB1, right? Because I requested 2 vendor records to be created. So if I go back over to these tables and I actually refresh the data for each of these, I'll just go ahead and do a data refresh on each one of these tables. So on LFA1, it was, right, I think it was 433. I should have remembered those numbers. But let's get down to the bottom. Refresh is taking a little bit. So here you see now we're at 435. So these two records have been inserted under SAP Client 200. You see the vendor number there, and then you see what the vendor is, and then you can actually look at the data. You can see it's realistic looking data that's being injected into the data store. And the same thing for LFB1. Let's see if I can get down to this a little bit faster. Yep, now you can see from 425 we added 2 more records, and you can see that the data is lining up just as you would expect. So this is how synthetic data generation works, leveraging self-service through the portal. The other thing that we might want to do is be able to do find and reserve records. So I can go to the self-service catalog. I can take a look at what my find and reserve options are. And so find and reserve we'll look for a vendor master record, or we can look for a vendor bank, right? So we looked at those models earlier and how they're created. This is how it's presented to the end user. So maybe my search criteria is looking for maybe something under a client 200, for example. And I can select 200 here, or maybe I want 200 and 300, for example. Maybe I want country code to be US. Let's see what else is in there. Okay, oh yeah, there it is, US. And maybe a particular company code. So I can see which company codes are available. I'll say 1710, and then I can say find data. And what it's going to do is actually go out and look for, and let me just do show related, right? That way I can see company code as well and reconciliation account. So once, I can look in here and I can see there's plenty that meet my criteria that I cared about. And if I wanted to reserve those, I could say I wanted this particular set of records, and I can add that to my reservation. And it's like a shopping cart. So I have a shopping cart here. I can see what records I'm reserving, right? And then I can name my reservation. I can put an expiration date on it. And what the reserve option does is actually allows me to reserve this record that meets this criteria. So as I'm testing, and another tester comes along and says, look, I need some records that meet this same criteria, the find and reserve is not going to actually show that reserved record as something that they can use. It'll show them only records that are available for somebody to use. So this is a process to put in place to prevent testers from stepping on each other's records if they were going to modify a record, for example, like delete a record out from underneath somebody. So here I can see what my reservation is. I can come in and take a look at my records at any time. And when I'm done testing with those records, I can release them, right? So this is that process. So similar, if I wanted to take another look at this find vendor bank record, just so you can see what that looks like, I'll just do a find all data. And you can see how that comes back, right? So I can see the client numbers, the different information about the bank that we've included as a part of this find and reserve, right? So I can see the bank's key and so on. So this is how self-service works, and this is the find and reserve capability.